morning. This is Melissa with the Northeast Ohio Regional Library System, and I would like to welcome you this morning to our virtual 2020 Emerging Technology Symposium. We built it, why don't they come? Poster session, Tech Together, Building Bug Robots. Now I'm going to turn over our symposium to Holly Klingler, our Research and Innovation Coordinator. Holly?
Thank you, Melissa, and good morning, everybody. I'm excited to welcome you to our continued 1 month long 7th annual virtual, that's a mouthful, virtual Emerging Technology Symposium. So please feel free to ask questions along the way. This is our very first virtual poster session. It is called Tech Together, Building Bug Robots, and the presenter is Niccole Paytosh. Niccole Paytosh is a library associate at the South Library branch of the Lorain Public Library System. She has spent the last 5 years working closely with families and youth of all ages. Her passion is creating family programming that enriches the lives of her patrons with creativity, innovation, and fun. So it is my pleasure to welcome Niccole, and I will hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. This is Niccole. I'm from the Lorain Public Library, and poor Holly has heard about this bug program for probably a good year. Every time she had a tech program and asked, what are you guys doing? I would say, oh, I'm going to be doing this really cool bug program. And then after I finished the bug program, I said, oh, hey, I'm done with this really cool bug program. Can I do this poster session? And that was actually back in the day when it was going to be in person. And then COVID happened, so it is now virtual. And I'm really excited because I get to share this with a lot of people. This is my first Zoom live type of webinar, so I hope I do a good job. And really, I want to put out there that I'm not a person who sugarcoats answers. So if you have questions about it, please ask and I will tell you a real answer. I want to tell you a little bit about me and my bug robot army. So I am what I consider a Jane of all trades, and I'm interested in a lot of things. And I actually came to the robot bugs from bugs, not from robots. So at the very end of my presentation, I have some extra bug things for you and some cool sort of tech stuff. They are going to email you a copy of the presentation, and I wanted to put a little note in here for myself to remind you of that, because I always go to webinars and I start taking notes. And then I feel like 10 minutes later, they say, oh yeah, we're gonna email the copy of the presentation to you. And I'm like, great, that would have been awesome to know like a whole page of notes ago. So I have my contact information here if you have any questions after the chat. And Holly's monitoring the chat for questions. Please ask them and I will answer them. So I put together a program that was called Tech Together, because I noticed that a lot of my families were coming in, and to be honest, the adults were as interested in the programs as the kids were. So I piloted a thing called Tech Together and sort of advertised it as specifically being fun, hands-on, and for families, so that the adults didn't have to really be shy, that they were interested in doing things too. One of the things that I really care about is listening to my community and knowing my community. So when my patrons ask for things, I try my best. If somebody says that their kid's really, really interested in planets, I try to do something with planets as quickly as I can. I did have a lot of people that were sort of interested in robots and 3D printing and those kind of things, but they might not have the money to get them themselves or the knowledge to get them themselves. So I sort of tried to do these hands-on things to at least introduce people to them. And then if they show more interest in it and then they like something, they can go out and go further with that. It's also important to me because I am interested in a lot of different things, and it might not be the best philosophy, but with a lot of my library programs, I pretty much go, oh, hey, I think that's cool. Oh, probably other people will think it's cool. Let's make a library program out of it. So anything that I can do that I'm passionate about or that can spark lifelong learning is something that I'm interested in doing, things that the kids are interested in doing. I really feel like they can tell if you are just phoning it in. So when you're passionate about things, I feel like that translates. So one of the things that I wanted to consider, it was probably over a year-long process of putting the Bug Robot program together. There are different things to consider. And one of the things that I thought about a lot was if my community was in a STEM desert. And we've heard a lot about literacy deserts and book deserts and food deserts, but I was thinking about if my place was a STEM desert. So one of the things I said is to consider what access your patrons have to STEM things and who can afford it, because it doesn't matter if you live 20 minutes from the zoo if it costs an entire paycheck to take a family of 4. So you need to think about the zoos, the aquariums, nature centers, botanical gardens, science museums, children's museums, planetariums, observatories. And then I was looking to it to see if there actually was a cut and dry definition. I was like, oh, can I find out, am I actually in a STEM desert? The answer is no. I really couldn't find out if I was or not, but I did find a website that talks about schools and education, and it goes through and it looks at the rates of like how many people are in computer classes and how many teachers have different kinds of degrees. And I want to say Ohio was something like we have 6% of STEM jobs. And I know that my local community does not have 6% STEM jobs. So I'm going to say that my specific community is in a STEM desert, and that there are things that I wanted to do to try and address that. And some of these Tech Together programs were something that I did. Here I have a video of putting the bugs together. They actually go really, really quickly, and they are controlled by the iPad or the iPhone. Let's see if I can play it again for you. And the movements on the bugs are actually based on cockroaches, so there's sort of a real life component in there. And I put out some things, I tried to put out some obstacles, but some of the other kids were moving them around. So the kamigami robots are what we built as the bug program. And in the box is a foldable shell, and there's different shells to make different characters. There's one that looks like a ladybug, there's one that looks like a praying mantis, there's a scorpion, there's different kinds of beetles, and the chassis is already built together. So there's like a main component to it, and then you take the plastic and you fold it and you have little snap rivets, which I think is really nice because it means that there's no extra tools. I didn't need to provide, a screwdriver for every single person that was going to build a robot. All the electronics are already inside, so you don't do any soldering, and everything runs on a micro USB cable, just one of the standard cables. It comes in there. I definitely may have opened one of the boxes and stole all the cables out to power up my kid's Kindle. So the battery charges in about 45 minutes. And the box says it lasts about 30 minutes. I actually think in real life that it lasted a little bit longer. It does require Bluetooth, and you have to have something to put the Kamigami app on. So a lot of people were using Android phone, iPhone. We got iPads from the main branch, and I had those there for people to use. I was a little bit worried with 20 robots running around that there might be some sort of like cross communication error, but there wasn't. It was fine. The motion is inspired by the real insects, which is the cockroaches, and the build time was about 45 to 60 minutes. It really depended on the kids, and I've noticed that the kids that did a lot of like Lego projects with their parents got through it a little bit faster. They were closer to the 45-minute side, and the kids that didn't do so many building things before were a little bit closer to the 60. But I planned the program for an hour and a half, so that was perfectly fine. The first thing they do is they actually get to build the robot. You take the plastic sheets out, you put in the snap rivets, you follow the instructions, and the instructions are in the app. So it's self-guided. You do step 1, you hit next, you do step 2. Some of the more complicated parts have videos, and it shows the video of the cockroach legs. The robots can be played in a variety of ways. So there are different modes. There's run, dance, tag, and battle. And those modes don't require any coding, but the tag and the battle modes will interact with other robots. So there's like an IR sensor inside, and it's basically laser tag that they play with each other. And then there's also a program mode, which is why I thought this was an interesting project to do. There's a code mode, and it's relatively simple. I don't think it's the best code mode that I've seen in any of the robots, but for having the code mode and the aspect that they get to build the robot, I think it's pretty cool. They can move back and forth, right and left. You can add in lights, and you can make the sounds. The sounds don't come from the robot themselves. The sounds come from the iPad app. But you just drag and drop the actions, and then you hit run, and the code runs. So I'm going to unshare my screen for a minute because I thought it would be fun to unbox a kamigami robot. And you can see my people. So can everybody see me okay? So when I said that there are different robots, I have a little robot bug army here. So I have a blue robot bug, and I have a ladybug robot bug. There's a praying mantis robot bug. There's some beetle robot bugs. Scorpion robot bug. Another beetle. And the box it comes in is actually just a little box like this. So my example here is one of the beetle bugs. And when you open it up, everything that you need is inside, which is, like I said, I like because it means no extra stuff to do. The plastic sheets have the character on it. You get little snap rivets. It comes with the cord. I did go through and took all of the robots out before the program to make sure all the parts were there, and I pre-charged the robots so that they did not have to worry about charging them the day of the program. And then this is the body of the robot. There's the IR sensor, there's the charging port, and this is where everything gets connected. So this is the body of the robot. All of the electrical components are already inside, so you don't have to deal with that bit. Open this real quick. So the character sheets is like a plastic covering, and you literally just peel it out, and the rivets go in the little holes and snap around the robot to make the different characters. You fold them very origami inspired. And then you actually build the legs of the robot out of these. And I don't know if you've ever put together like a plastic car model or a Gundam, but they snap out and snap together. I did have a few patrons complain that the snaps are a little bit hard to do. So for the little fingers, the adults had to help. And it does get a little bit long after like the 50th snap. Your finger might hurt a little bit, but it honestly wasn't too bad. And one thing that I really did like is that they gave you extra rivets. So if you break one of the rivets, it's really not a big deal. You don't have to worry about being short. How am I doing, Miss Holly? Does anybody have questions about the robots?
Not yet, but I actually have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the biggest things I think with libraries is the question of whether you can undo and redo them. Can you pull them apart? Are they durable enough that would allow for that?
They are relatively durable. I think if you mess up a part and are like, oh no, I put the arm on backwards, again, they give you the extra rivets so you can pop them apart. But is it something that you could build like 3 times? Probably not. I'm going to be honest that I bought a bunch of these when they were on super sale on Amazon, which is how I have a robot bug army. But one of the things that I wanted to do, because I was getting them at like $5, was I wanted to try and do some stuff on my 3D printer just to take, because I figured the body itself was probably worth $5. So I wanted to see if I could take my 3D printer and like print stuff and do extra things with it. So it never happened, but that was my goal in the first place. But I think you could probably pull it apart maybe once. If you mess something up, you could pull it apart and fix it, but it's not really made to go all the way apart and all the way back. But the fact that they work together with other robots is, I feel like that sort of makes up for it.
Yeah. Did you say the whole bug robot was $5?
I paid $5 on Amazon for this bug robot, yes.
That is good to know. Okay.
Yes. So they're not always that price. And I cover it a little bit farther, but there is a website called Camel, where you can sort of track prices of things on Amazon. So I bought my original one at much more expensive than $5, but I bought the Robot Bug Army. Most of them were about $5. I think I paid $11 for one of them.
Okay, great. Awesome.
I am going to go back to sharing my screen unless did anybody else want to see a close-up of anything of the bugs. If you happen to do this program and you have a choice, if everything is the same, I actually found that the ladybug is the easiest one to put together. There are varying levels of difficulty, not super varying levels of difficulty, but the ladybug one is the easiest. Do I limit class size? Yes, I did limit class size. I had enough money for 20 robots. So I counted each robot basically per kid, and the families had to come in and help the kids build the robots. So, but people had to sign up way in advance for the robots. Was there more to that question, Holly?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do library customers who attend the program get to keep the robot they've
They
created?
did get to keep the robots. Yes, that was part of the advertised and the promotion part that I did with it. It was like, oh, you get to come, you get to build a robot, and you get to keep it. I did try to, if anybody was like a single kid that signed up, I tried to encourage them to like call a friend and sign up with their friend so that they could have the robots play together. Although I built time into the program so that they could all run around afterwards, which we saw in the video.
Yeah.
But most people that come into my library, it's usually families of like two or three. So
That's great. And then Laura said she bought one for $15 and it looks
Yes.
like fun. And so that's
it
still
is super fun.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know. There are also, this company makes some dinosaur ones that were like Jurassic Park branded. I believe that those are much more expensive. I think those are in the $80 range, and I have not seen them on super sale. Like I've seen the bug ones, and I was a little bit afraid. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this whole presentation and encourage people to go buy bugs. They're going to be like out of print and not available. But as far as I've seen, they've still been on Amazon. So
Great. That's it.
all right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
One quick question.
Yeah, sure.
From Laura, what was the website or track prices? The website to track prices, and
It
you
is
mentioned
called Camel, 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 like the desert animal. Camel, Camel, Camel.
Great.
I did have to include some bug puns in here. It was going to happen. So if you have any questions, don't be shy. So I wanted to go into a little bit of the making of building a bug bot. I told you guys a little bit ago that poor Holly has heard about this program for a really, really long time. But I'm not too far from Lorain County Community College, where they have the Northeast Ohio Technology Day. And in 2018, there was a guy there that did a program called, he has a program called Get With The Program. And he did a presentation, and he talks about basically being a Black man and growing up where in a STEM desert, even though those specific words weren't STEM, but basically in a STEM desert and being a Black man and trying to give back to the community. And he runs like robotics camps for kids. I was like, oh, that's really neat. So we had him come to our library, and he did a DIY drone program, which was really cool. They had 20 spots for that as well. But their limitations on that were that it had to be 10 and up. And he told us that there was soldering with it. So we made it that the student had to, or the kid had to come with a parent or guardian to do the soldering. And it turns out, I guess the drone that he got didn't require soldering. So it ended up that that wasn't necessary. But I did have a lot of people that were interested in that were under the age of 10. And it was just sort of like, well, it was really good for the kids that are 10 and above, but I felt bad for the kids that were under 10 that they couldn't do this thing. But it overall went really well. And I was thinking, I got to find something that's similar to this, but for my younger crowd. I personally acquired a Mantix robot in 2018, and I paid $47.89 for it. So I saw one in Toys R Us when that still existed, and thought it was really cool because my kid was super into bugs at the time. And so I got it and I put it together. I thought it was neat. I got a couple more on Amazon cheaper, and I started taking them to schools to do school outreach. Instead of having like a little project to do at my table, I brought the bugs, and the kids would get to run the bugs for like 2 minutes and play tag with each other. And it went really well. We then did some of the Tech Together programming. I did that in the summer of 2019. So I had a program with robots and coding. And I noticed that we had a dash dot, we had the little, what's a Sphero ball, the one that looks like BB-8. And I brought in the kamigami mantics that I had just to have another robot for the kids to play with, because I didn't want there to be too long of a line for anything. And that was actually the most popular one out of all the things. People were like, oh yeah, BB-8's cool, but they wanted to play with the praying mantis. I noticed that my patrons had a hard time doing the code mode for the dash and dot, and I ended up having to put it in like play mode. I also did a recording studio, and I did a stop motion animation program. So I sort of got my community into the idea of doing these family tech programs. Then when I thought, okay, I have the support for this, I went to my friends in the library group, and I was so nervous about this. I thought it was going to be terrible to ask for money. I brought in the robots with me so I could show them off. I had calculated, I was like, okay, I was going to ask for 13 robots. I was going to ask for $176 exactly. And the group was so chill. I went in, they were like, why don't you just ask for $200? I said, well, okay. So they gave me $200 to buy as many robots as I could. And when we ordered them, they were $9.99 on Amazon. And one thing that I sort of did when I advertised the program and when I emailed people about making sure that they came to the program that they signed up for was I just always put in there, I was like, oh, the MSRP on this is $49.99, just to make it sound like, hey, you're building this cool, really big robot. As I mentioned earlier, Camel shows a low price last I looked of $520 for the robots. And different ones have different prices, but the cheapest I've seen is the $521. So I noticed when I was putting my presentation together that my program looked super, super white. So I went through and I actually crunched the numbers, and I am going to say that these are based on my observations only, that my patrons were not surveyed about their demographic information, but a lot of the patrons are repeat patrons, so I do know about them and their families. I felt like the pictures didn't reflect the actual numbers of my program, so I did want to bring this up just to be like, this isn't a program that's just for white people. This isn't a program that's just for young boys. But I had 63% white, 22.2% Hispanic, 7.4 Asian, and 7.4 Black. And I went through and we use Project Outcome at my library. And in Project Outcome, you can sort of write a little circle around your community and it'll tell you the demographic breakdown of your community. And I feel like this is actually really pretty close to the actual demographic breakdown of the city that I'm in and in the community that I live. So I was pretty happy with that. We did have a couple of no-shows on that day, but I think if COVID wasn't happening, that might not have happened, because our program was March 9th and the library closed March 13th. So I think that was just when things were really starting to hit. So the couple families I think that signed up and didn't come would have been there otherwise. Age-wise, I had 40.7% adults and 59.3 kids. And the male to female ratio is 44.4 male and 55.6 female, which is one thing that I really care about, because again, I don't want people to think, oh, this is just a thing for boys. This is just a thing for the boys that are into Legos, because that was not what was reflected in my program. There were more girls at this program than boys. So we ran these surveys, and I thought it was really helpful to have the surveys. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this presentation, and I actually have all this information to share. So in the surveys, it's through Project Outcomes. So some of the questions are built in, and then there are other questions that you can add in. So the questions that we added in were like, what did you like most about the program? And what could the library do to better assist you in learning more? And what other STEM programs should the library offer? Honestly, to me, the what other STEM programs is one of the more helpful questions, because I'm always trying to listen and give people what they want to. So what did they like most about the program? All the responses for the program are really good. They said working as a family to build the robot, how excited my kids were to run it. A lot of people were into the building. A lot of people were into fun and learning. A lot of people were into the robots. They said everything. The kids loved it. They liked playing. I have retained all of the spelling and capitalization of the surveys here, just in case you think it looks a little bit funny. What could the library do to better assist you in learning more? Just straight up, they said that they wanted more STEM programs. They want more programs like this. They want more tablets. They want more fun STEM link on a paper to take home. Nothing. I love this response book because you do more. Nothing. It's goated. But I had to explain to some of my coworkers what goated means. So that actually means the greatest of all time. A lot of nothing, nothing, nothing. Some people wanted tech manuals and less pain in my fingers. So there's where I was talking about those little snap rivets. They do get a little hard after a while. One patron said, I thought it was very informative and easy to follow the instructions. And then what other STEM programs should the library offer? They wanted more programs like the robot and science experiments. So I got a lot of robots. I got a lot of people asking for science, a lot of people asking for building, coding, other things. I did really like the response to science cooking, because that's not one I would have thought of before, but science cooking sounds pretty cool. One of the responses I liked is said, they're all great, but a giant Lego house would be Gucci. So if maybe we could figure out how to do a giant Lego house in the future, that sounds pretty cool. Project Outcome runs these survey results, and it's on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being strongly disagree, 5 being agree. So none of the responses were below a 3. So the formula looks a little bit funny, but it asks about knowledge, confidence, skills, and awareness. So in my mind, I feel like this survey shows that people were really into this program. It looks like a good response to me. I think people were pretty happy with it. I was pretty happy with it. They asked again for more programs like this. I thought it was successful. They had fun. I heard them talking to their peers about it. They came back and told me afterwards that they were talking to their peers about the program. They indicated they wanted more programming like it. And a lot of the parents and a lot of the kids liked the educational aspect of the program and told me that they were seeking out more things like that. Some of the parents said, we're going to go buy a robot like this because this was really fun. So I was really excited about running the program. I was really happy it went well, even with COVID happening. I'm really excited to get to share it with you guys. And overall, it was a positive experience, but I don't want to say that it was perfect. Again, I will tell you guys straight up, COVID-19 happened. And so when people came in, I did make them sanitize their hands when they came in. I had originally wanted to do a coding corner where it was sort of like they learned how to code the robot before they got to go to the play obstacle area. And I just didn't have room for it with trying to space out extra stuff because of the COVID. I wrote some coding goals on the board to sort of try and replace that, but I don't think most people paid attention to it. It would have worked better with a dedicated coding spot, and I just didn't have that. I think a lot of people were confused about an actual building a robot that they got to control by a Bluetooth versus like one of the little brushy bots. And to add to confusion, in our programming guide, they put this little picture of the paperclip robot and not the picture of the actual robot that we used. And so I had people that signed up for it and thought they were building the cool robot and then saw the picture of it and were calling confused. So I feel like that sort of confused people a little bit. So I guess just if you're doing something with robots, make sure they have the pictures that you want them to have and not get confused. Be very clear that it's not a brushy bot. Be very clear that it's not like one of the little circuit robots. I did ask people to bring their own devices because I knew we only had so many iPads to hand out, and I had more robot bugs than iPads. And I figured if I could ask everybody to bring their devices, some of them will bring it, some of them won't, and I'll be okay. And that's basically what happened. But I did reserve the iPads. I really honestly could have used more iPads. It would have been much easier for me if I had enough iPads to match the bugs to begin with. Because what happened was people did bring their devices, even though I reminded them, people brought their devices and then they said, oh, my battery's dead. Or they forgot to bring their device. It sounds like the Bluetooth requirement isn't very heavy, so even the older devices will run the app without too much of a problem. So that the compatibility itself wasn't an issue, but it would have been easier for me if I had 20 bugs and 20 iPads to begin with. And then lastly, something to consider is money. So I know that this program was more expensive than my typical program, even getting the robots cheaper, $10 versus $50. That's still way more than what I usually spend on a program. So this was very much a special thing that I got the funding for from the Friends, that I could advertise as this is a special thing that we are doing. I know that there's some libraries out there that are like, there's no way I could spend $10 per person on a program. And there's other libraries out there that that's not a problem. So for me, that was a special thing. Looking ahead, I know that our library follows the CSLP, and the 2021 theme is animals and stories. So I was really hoping that we might be able to get to build bug robots again as part of summer reading. If we can have programming in the summer, that'd be really great. Right now, we're looking at COVID-19 and sort of the changing face of library programming. So I know a couple of libraries had started doing in-person programming again, but it sounds to me from what I've heard that most are not. So are we looking at virtual programming? There's maybe small group programming. I feel like this is something that sort of fits a small group program well. It's nice because it's self-directed and people are asking for self-directed activities. Right now, subscription boxes are really big. So this might be something that you could sort of do like, oh, well, you're gonna get this box and you're gonna pick it up from the library with some other things and build this robot and do some other bug stuff for the summer. Or I have a lot of people that are asking about home and virtual school and trying to supplement that with other things as well. So those are some of the angles. I'm just sort of trying to think if I don't have in-person programming in the future.
So we do have two questions.
Okay, go ahead.
One was relevant to this. Have you or are you planning on creating a way to do this program virtually?
Not currently, but if I did this program again, we're so far out that I would have planned it, because it's a special program, to be a summer program, which I'm hoping we will have in-person programming in the summer. If I were to do it virtual, I think I would probably market it to the homeschool / supplementing school, almost like a subscription box. I would pair it with some other things and be like, oh, you're going to come, the family's going to get this robot, you're going to get these other things. I don't know. I think it would go well. I think that people would like it. I think your responses would be good and it would be worth your time, but it just depends on how cheap you can get the robots. And like maybe if you're doing a survey, so you have those numbers to sort of back up what you're showing, like it feels that it was worth the money. So, but I wouldn't feel bad doing it virtually because it is self-directed. And I know that that's something that some of the other libraries are pursuing. I believe Cuyahoga is doing like a virtual cooking one where you come and you get all the cooking ingredients and then a chef's going to do it. And I know that I have some friends that do IT stuff. And that's one of the things now is that the vendors are sort of like sending beer and cheeses, and you have like a virtual event and you try the different beers and you try the different cheeses, and in that way it's a little more interactive. So I think the key here is interactive and virtual instead of just logging into just watch a thing, but like let's build it together while we're doing this thing. I think that works better.
That's a great point. And then the other question is, I'm assuming that this is elementary age. Could this be something that a teen could do with a younger sibling?
I absolutely think this is something a teen could do with the sibling. I put my limit at 6 and up because I do have a lot of families that are right in about the 2nd grade area. And I really didn't think below 6 would have the finger dexterity to do the snap rivets, even with an adult helping, that 45 minutes would just be a little bit hard for under 6. But absolutely, a lot of my families, they go from, I'd say about 2nd grade, they'd go up to, I have 12, 13-year-olds that come in and do it. So a teen could definitely do it with a younger kid. I think it would be a perfect teen program itself too, because they could probably get through it a little bit faster and they wouldn't have an issue with dealing with the snap rivets.
Great.
So I promised you guys some cool bug stuff at the end because, again, I came through this through bugs and not through robots. One of the new books that came out is The Bug Girl, and I feel like this is a super, super important book because the little girl is bullied about liking bugs. And I am really into the intersection of nature and technology and social media. So this little girl's mom reached out on Twitter and said, my kid's getting bullied. Are there any girl scientists out there that could give her some words of encouragement? And it started this whole hashtag with bugs are for girls. And she actually ended up, a bunch of people reached out to her and they encouraged her. She got back into the bug thing. And then a guy was writing a research paper about social media and its effect on science communication. So he reached out to her. So she actually got to co-author a research paper. So I think it's a really cool book, especially to encourage those kids, like, that's okay if other people are not into your thing. You can continue on liking your thing and it's okay. So that's like my favorite book now. So I want everybody to know about it. But they just released some Google AR insects that you could view in 3D, and you literally just on your phone, you can Google the name of the insect and then click a view in 3D underneath. And there's like 30 different bugs you do, like a Hercules beetle and stuff. And you just, boop, you can place it wherever you want and look like you're stomping on bugs. There's also the Academy of Natural Sciences at Drexel University. They do a bug fest every year. So if I were to do bug things and I was trying to time it for the summer, I would probably do it around that time when other people are already talking about bugs, but not necessarily. And then I have a lot of people, I've also ordered caterpillars and ladybugs, caterpillars for the library, and people have asked about ladybugs. So I put in the link there because that's where I get my live caterpillars from. Oh, and then I have The Girl Who Drew Butterflies, which is about a girl and an artist and bugs, because that is the intersection of cool things for me. And that won a bunch of awards. So thank you for attending. You could contact me anytime. If you have questions, I'm telling you, I will give you real answers to the questions. You can ask them.
Thank you so much, Niccole. What's a good way to contact you?
I put my Twitter on there, so I don't actually tweet that much, but you can also email me at, and my name is spelled a little bit funny, but it's npaytosh@lpls.info.
Perfect. So any last questions? Anybody wants to write down in the chat section?
Or anything you want to see again, I'll totally show you the little robots.
All right.
They actually move quite fast if you're not expecting them. I noticed that a lot of adults are really, that like hindbrain, it's a cockroach, scary thing. It's not a lot of adults, so.
Yeah, Erin says, thank you. I like the idea of subscription boxes. I really like that as well.
Yeah.
Jill says, do you have any screenshots of the coding app itself?
No, but I could totally pull it up on the iPad if you give me just a second. So let me share my screen, Holly, or unshare my screen for a second.
Perfect.
Let me see. How visible is that? Okay. Too
Pretty
blurry?
good.
Okay. So, let me try it down. So there's run, dance, tag, battle, and code. Oh, sorry. So if you do code, it's literally like drag and drop. I'm gonna try and angle it down so it's not so. Any good?
A little bit higher. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. So there's like different motions that you put down here, and you literally just drag it up to the top and then click run, and that's what the robot will do. So you could change the direction, you could change the lights, you can make it do sounds, but again, the sound actually comes out of the iPad or out of the app versus out of the bug itself. But it does have built-in LEDs, so it changes colors. I think I have let me see. Let's see if I can do it. So there's motors, there's lights, so I can turn them.
As you do that, there's a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the max you would have going in a small space at a time?
I did 20, and I don't think I would go over 20, but I think 20 was fine. It depends, again, a little bit on your COVID-ness and how much room you have, but I had enough room in my room that I just sort of shoved the tables as close together as I could reasonably, and then left a big open space. I would probably have put heavier items to go around because they moved them a little bit too much. So my robot turned off. Give me a second.
And Jill said, so you could challenge kids to code their bugs through mazes.
You absolutely could challenge kids to bug. Again, I wanted to have a coding corner where they had to do their little code first. Hold on, I don't know what I did. Go away. I wanted to have a little coding corner where they had to do the code first, and it just didn't happen.
Did they stay together when crashing?
They did stay together just fine. Some of the bugs have little like arms that pop in. Some of them pop out a little bit, but I just glued it back in. It wasn't a big deal. They're actually pretty hardy for what they do. I'm gonna disconnect it and reconnect it.
Yeah, I remember we would have tech events and BB-8 would be the sharable and his head would pop off and you'd hear, hopefully kids weren't truly terrified, but they sound like, oh my God, his head popped off. Oh, that's neat.
So
And then
in the code, I told it to move and then I told it to change color. So hopefully we'll see if I can. And then he changes color.
Neat. Do the bugs work outside on the grass? Jill says.
In super long grass, I would say no. They definitely worked on gymnasium floor, and my floor is carpeted, and they worked on the carpeted floor. Okay. I think on dirt, it would probably be okay. Super long grass, I probably wouldn't, but I'm not sure. Haven't tried super long grass.
Okay. Any other last questions? I mean, I think that's incredible for, again, even at the retail right now, I looked and it's $14.40, but camel is really helpful.
And I had talked to my boss about it ahead of time. So we were basically set to go as soon as the price dropped on them. So the day the price dropped on them, the PO went to the purchasing lady and it was done. So they were prepared and ready. And I have never bought anything in bulk before. You might be able to, contact Mattel and get them for a bulk price somehow. That's just not something I've ever done.
Okay. Virginia asks, you may have already answered, well, what is the youngest age you would recommend this program for? That's a good question.
I set it for 6 and up. I feel like the 6 was on the lower end, but with a lot of parent help, it was fine. I probably would not go under 6, but again, I had a family or two no-show, so I did have some younger siblings that did it, and it was okay. So it really depends on your families and how into it if you have one poor person trying to do like 4 little kids that are 2 and under, it's not going to be a good time for that family. But if you have one parent that's involved and you have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, you'll be fine. The box, I believe, says 8 and up. So the box recommends 8. I did 6. And I had a couple younger in the program and it was fine.
So if someone asked if we had a bug and asked to pair with a personal device, would that work? That's another good question.
Yes, so each bug ties to each app, but you can disconnect and reconnect the bug anytime. So if it uses the library one, and then you take it home, you could take it and put it on yours and it would be fine. So again, I encouraged people to bring in their own devices. Not everybody did, so I had backup iPads from the library for people to use with the bugs. But then they got to take them home and they could go and they open the app and they can launch it and put it on their device without any issues.
So yeah, they're thinking of having the bug on display, but asking guests to download and use their own devices as they do it.
I had not thought that should work. I don't see any reason why that would not work.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be really neat. Just make sure you have room. Because like I said, that hindbrain cockroach thing is really what there, and older adults will scream. Because I took it to a gymnasium and let the kids run it around, and they ran it at adults, and there was screaming, which kind of amused me, but might not have amused them so much.
That's funny, and it's just the impulse, but that just shows it's good. So yeah, and Laura says, I'm excited. We're gonna have to try this. Yeah. Great space. She says we have a great space to try it, so that'd be cool.
Like I said, the code mode is sort of not as great or robust as I would like it to be. I feel like even there's the mouse, Colby, the Code and Go mouse, which I sort of use a lot to introduce coding stuff, is much better at you go forward, you go left. This one actually moves so quickly that it's kind of hard to tell. So I the code mode's okay. It's not the best, but it's something. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Any last questions?
I already took up way too much of your time, so.
No, this is really cool. And I like that it's hands-on, and you mentioned sharing about this. I loved hearing about it because, you know, it's something new, it's different. And obviously now we've had to adapt because of COVID, but it sounds like even then you were still being mindful of it. So that's stuff we need to think about.
So.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was a lot of fun.
It was super great.
Everybody, thank you very much for staying, and I hope you enjoy and come to the other poster sessions. I hope you come to the other programs, of course. So we'll be doing it month-long, and please contact us if you have any questions. Hopefully everybody is signed up for the full event, month-long event, but if not, you can always contact us and we'll make sure that you've signed up for all the events. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Niccole. Thank you everybody for coming, and we will see you soon.
That was a lot of people.